G'day, welcome back to Waller Customs. I'm Brent Waller. Today we're looking at the fourth in my series of tips for LEGO Ideas creators. And if you've missed the last three videos, basically the LEGO Ideas equation, as I put it, is the quality of your idea multiplied by the quality of your build, multiplied by the quality of your presentation, multiplied by the quality of your promotion gives you the end result of your LEGO Ideas project and how successful it can potentially be. And if you've made it this far, you should have a solid idea with a solid build. But now it's time to look closely at the presentation of your LEGO Ideas project. The way I frame it, your presentation and your promotion are all very entwined to the point where they're almost the same thing. It's almost, but it's not quite. And what I mean by that is your promotion is very heavily dependent on your presentation. Think of it this way. Your presentation is how you're conveying your idea to your audience on the LEGO Ideas website. This is people who are already on the LEGO Ideas website, browsing through the projects and hopefully seeing your presentation. I call this the internal promotion. Where the promotion, as I'm talking about in terms of my formula, is the promotion and presentation outside of LEGO Ideas as a website. So that's social media, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, that is used to drive traffic to your project on LEGO Ideas. And I call that the external promotion. But either way, I want to make it clear under no uncertain terms there is one single thing that is going to drive people to vote for your project, whether it's on LEGO Ideas itself or outside external coming to LEGO Ideas. You've got one chance.
One shot.
And that one main thing is the main image that you use for your project.
One opportunity.
That one image is the first thing people will likely see for your project, as either a thumbnail browsing the LEGO Ideas website or externally on social media where someone shared your project. That one main image has to encompass everything it is about your LEGO Ideas in one image as best as possible. You can have the most flowery, well-written description.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey.
And a library of supplemental images to convey what your project is about. But as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So you need to try and capture the essence of your project in that one image. Because if that one image isn't good enough, no one's going to click it to find out more about it. Regardless of how much effort you put into the description and the supplemental images, if that one image isn't good enough to draw their attention, they're just not going to click it. Ideally, you want that one image to capture them hook, line, and sinker for the entire concept of your project. So they're only clicking your project to vote and support it. Too many times I've seen people complaining that their projects aren't getting approved for publishing on the LEGO Ideas website because their pictures aren't good enough. I go back to again and read the rules on the LEGO Ideas website. The LEGO Ideas team has done a great job of explaining the do's and don'ts when it comes to the pictures for your LEGO Ideas projects. Back in the Wild West days, you used to be able to put logos and text and other things on your LEGO Ideas project's main images to convey what your project was about. Now they've changed the rules so that you can only put things that are actually a part of your project. So that means no logos, no text, no supplemental objects that aren't actually a part of your core submission.
That doesn't seem fair.
At first, no, it didn't seem fair, but it's actually put the onus on the LEGO Ideas fan creators to wholly sell their ideas conceptually through one image without text. So that's not relying on logos or text for a particular franchise to sell the person on the vote. That means it's up to the LEGO fan designer to really take responsibility for selling your project through the build and then subsequently through the presentation. Now that main image doesn't have to be a still image. You can actually use GIFs now, which I've not used myself, but it's a good way if your project has got movement or some sort of functionality that can open up. You can actually display that via the GIF. That'll attract more people's attention when they're browsing through the catalogue of LEGO Ideas project. That movement will draw their eye immediately. But that will only work for people on the LEGO Ideas platform. If you share the link outside externally, it's just going to go to a still image. Now, as I mentioned, those guidelines that LEGO Ideas has provided has got some great tips for how to get the most out of your presentation of your image. Whether it's a photo of a physical build or a render of a digital build, the same principles will apply. Beyond those guidelines and advice they've given you, have a really hard think about when you've chosen a picture you think might be good for your main image. Think about whether that image conveys your LEGO Ideas project and the core concept behind it, the idea, as accurately as possible and conveys what your project is about as cleanly as possible. Is your build being shown in the best light, both figuratively and literally? A good test of this is to take the image you think you might want to use and shrink it down to the size it might be as a thumbnail on the LEGO Ideas website. That'll give you a good idea of how your image is being sold amongst all the other projects and how it's standing out or perhaps not standing out. Whether it's the full-sized image or the thumbnail, just make sure it's recognizable and easy to understand what's going on in the image. And just check on the LEGO Ideas website when you upload your images. It'll give you a preview of what it will look like as a smaller image, and just make sure no important information is being cut off from the sides or top when it's shrunk down to a thumbnail size. Try and keep the same proportion of images And research is your best weapon here. Have a browse to the LEGO Ideas website, have a look at some of those projects that have reached 10,000 votes and the ones that have expired, and see if you can see the difference between what has made certain projects stand out to your eye and what has made other projects drop away and not really catch your attention, and try and use some of that information to inform your project's main image. I could give you advice about photography and framing and lighting, but all of these are general concepts that you can find better resources online than anything I could offer you. Just look for instructions for product lighting for the most applicable results. And while fancy lighting equipment and cameras can help, it's not necessary. You can do just as good a job with your camera on your phone than you can with expensive DSLRs and other equipment. Some of the best photos I've ever taken of my LEGO creations were just taken on top of my freezer or in the bathroom with no additional lighting equipment, just the camera on my phone. Just take a lot of photos at different angles, so then you've got a lot to choose from later on when it comes time to select which is your main image for your project.
Okay, everyone, let's get started.
Before you take those photos, just think about the context of your LEGO Ideas build. If your project is mostly white, for example, and you're trying to film it on a white background, when you're viewing it as a thumbnail, it's not really going to pop quite as much, and it's not going to stand out as much as the other projects where people have used contrast to make their projects pop. So perhaps that's a case where we would use a black background or a darker background for a white project. If it's a black project, perhaps just use it on the white background. And this one's general advice that I should have told you in all the other videos, but whether it's working on the photography for the presentation or working on the design of your build or even the idea itself, there is no need to rush. There is no deadline hanging over your head that needs to have it done by a particular time. You've only got one chance to impress.
One shot.
And although you can edit your project at a later date, you really need to make that first impression last. Any supplemental images you use are great, but they're not critical. Just make sure you show various angles of your build, and if it's got any cool functionalities or minifigs, just use close-ups of those. Don't bother with slight variations of different camera angles, just keep it minimal. And the same goes with the text. Obviously the name is very important, but like the main image, it needs to encompass everything there is about your project. And going back to one of my projects, for example, the orrery of the solar system I created with Chris Orchid, I know what an orrery is, but some people might not. So instead of calling it the orrery or the solar system orrery, we opted to call it the clockwork solar system, which is a little bit more descriptive and hopefully conveys a little bit more about what the project is about, in that it moves and it's functional and represents the accurate orbital rotations of the planets. And the text description of your project, I honestly don't think is all that important. You should absolutely use this section to describe your project in detail, explaining any cool functionalities or features it might have, but no one's going to read that unless they're attracted by your main image. And that's the goal. You want them to be so sold on that main image that they're just going straight through to vote. And lastly, you do have the option of creating videos for your LEGO Ideas project, which is very important for the presentation, but that leans more into the promotional aspect, which will draw people from outside the LEGO Ideas website to the LEGO Ideas website. And we'll cover that in the next video. As I said, the presentation and the promotion are very closely tied together.
You son of a bitch.
And that gets to the end of my advice about the presentation. I just want to hammer home that point about the main image being of the utmost importance for all your presentation and subsequent promotion. And that's where I'll leave this video for now. We'll do the promotion next. But just be aware, the promotion is not something that should be considered an afterthought. It should be something you're thinking about through the entire development process of your project. Essentially, the promotion is how you're conveying your idea's concept through all those other platforms we've gone through before, the build and the presentation. But you need to think about that all the way through of how I'm going to sell this idea to people. And like I said, you've got that one chance to impress.
One shot.
If people are capturing your project on LEGO Ideas, that main image is the first thing they're going to see, and that's that one chance to impress.
One opportunity.
And the promotion is the first chance to impress outside of the LEGO Ideas website, so that's social media.
Mom spaghetti.
And if you've made it this far in my series, thank you very much for watching all my ramblings. I've tried to learn as I go and get better as I go, so I hope you've seen some improvement since the very first episode. But for now, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.